You will never become debt-free or stay debt-free until you do these things.
Hi, I'm Larry.
I'm Hope.
And we're from Under the Median, where every week we bring you videos on practical frugality. Hope and I started our marriage 36 years ago, living paycheck to paycheck. And our bank account actually got down to almost zero.
In fact, the only cash we had until the next payday was what we could find in our wallets or what we could dig up in between the couch cushions.
That day began our journey in living debt-free and learning how to budget what we had.
And paying off all of our debt. At this point, we've been debt-free for 27 years. But I think that there is something that people misunderstand about being debt-free. They feel like there are things that you do to become debt-free, and then after you've reached that plateau, everything is fantastic from there on out, and you don't have to continue to follow the same principles. That's actually not true. There are a lot of things that we do every single month in order to maintain being debt-free. So whether you are on the road to becoming debt-free or you're already debt-free, you can use the principles we'll talk about in this video.
The first thing you need to look at is separating your wants from your needs and recognizing which is which.
I think one of the things that happened for us is that after we paid off that final debt, we felt like we had so much more money, and we began to spend money on things without really putting the thought into it that we needed to. But we learned pretty quickly that habits like that was what would get us back in the same situation that we just got ourselves out of. Even if you're debt-free, you still have to consider, is this a want or is this a need?
Yeah, so you need to ask yourselves, do I really need this? How much is it going to cost me? How much is it going to affect the other items that I need?
Also, questions that are important are things like, do I have the cash saved up to pay for this item? Or how will spending the money on this item affect all the rest of my financial goals?
Hope and I did a video just a short while back on 40 questions that you can ask yourself as to whether something is a want or a need. We'll leave a link for it up above and in the description of this video.
Habit number 2, and this is one we also learned pretty early on, was that we needed to change our self-talk. We had spent a lot of times telling ourselves we can't do this. And in order to become debt-free, we had to continually tell ourselves, you can do this.
Yes.
But the other part of this equation is not telling yourself that there's a back door.
Yeah.
That running that credit card through is your plan B. Because that is what happens when you're in debt. That credit card becomes kind of like your emergency fund. And we had to set the credit cards aside and say, we are not going to use them.
And also, we weren't going to take out a loan for something that we think that we needed right away. A lot of times, things that you need that cost a lot of money don't have to be purchased right away. You have plenty of time to do some research on them and save up for the total amount of that item.
Also, in the line of self-talk, here's something else we had to do. We had to honestly let go of our own self-pity. We spent months saying, oh my gosh, we have no money. Oh my goodness, we're flat broke. Oh my Lord, we're going to live like this forever. We had to change that self-pity into something that said, no, we look at what we've achieved and we're going to continue on the path that we have chosen for ourselves.
Every day, you can list 3 items that won't cost you any money that will bring you joy or cause you to have some fun.
We found that habit to be so incredibly helpful that every Monday we still have our big 3. Most of the times our big 3 right now have to do with mini goals and what we're going to do to move forward in our larger financial goals. But also in that big 3, we include some things that we're going to do that week that are going to be super fun that aren't going to cost us any money.
Before buying, look for alternatives. You know, the first thing that we tend to do when something goes wrong, let's say our washing machine goes out, oh, we need to buy a brand new one. But there might be some other things you can do. There might be some listed on the used market. There might be a friend who's getting rid of theirs and they would just like to give it to you. There's so many different things you can look at without having to buy a new one. And if you do buy a new one, you might want to do some research. The place that you're purchasing the item from might have one on their sales floor that they're getting ready to unload, and they might have a really good price on that. Lots of different alternatives you can look at besides just buying a brand new one.
As a whole, we call this our hierarchy of frugality, just because we really like to give things cool names. Let me explain in detail how this works. And Larry sort of alluded to a lot of the steps in this just a second ago. Let's just say your coffee maker won't coffee make anymore.
Okay.
You get up and it just does nothing. Instead of running out and purchasing a new coffee maker, what do? Well, you tell friends and family, hey, my coffee maker went out. What Larry said is true. A lot of times people have an extra coffee maker and say, I'll just give you the coffee maker.
Yeah, my
or I'll
old one.
Sell it to you for $5. Always check with the lowest price option first, which is free or pretty doggone close to free. Then as you move up the hierarchy, you move to higher prices if you can't find it at that lower price point. So the next thing you're going to do is probably look at thrift stores.
Thrift stores.
See if you can
Goodwill. Go to Goodwill.
Look, we have bought coffee makers brand new in the box, never taken out of the box for pennies on the dollar at places like Goodwill or Salvation Army or our local Mission Mart. You're going to look there. If you can't find it there, you can look at places that sell coffee makers. We had this exact scenario happen to us, and we had worked our way up the hierarchy of frugality to, oh my goodness, we're going to have to look retail. Always look at the sales cycle and figure out, is there a sales cycle kind of coming up around the corner for this item? Can I find it on sale? Can I find a coupon for it? Can I find cash back for it? You want to stack as many savings opportunities as you can when you are purchasing something. And that, my friends, is the hierarchy of frugality.
If this video is making sense to you, get it? Making sense, and it's really helping you out, please give it a like. That helps other people get a chance to watch it as well.
Or even if you just enjoy Larry's periodic puns, go ahead and give this video a thumbs up, will you? Now, if you're consistently looking for new ways that you can spend less and save more every month, and you've just like a list of places that you can cut back your budget, you want to grab our free guide to reducing expenses. I'm going to make sure that there's a link to it in the description of the video.
Here are some more things you can do in order to not buy when you shouldn't. Ignore slick advertising. Advertising is made so that it makes you unhappy with what you have, but you know you're going to be happy when you buy their product.
Look, there are trends that come around in society, and people tell you you need to buy the latest, greatest, slickest budget is going to solve all of your problems. And in general, it really doesn't. But what they are actually selling you is something called Fomo. If you know what Fomo is, say, yep, I know what that is in the comments section. Fomo is fear of missing out. None of us wants to be the odd man out that doesn't see or have or experience the latest, greatest thing that is on the market. Fear of missing out. Also, that fear of missing out is propagated by the sales. By putting something at a discount, and it's only on a discount for a certain amount of time, and you're like, if I don't get it now, I'm not going to be able to get it.
And you notice everybody that they show in the commercial using the product is very happy. And if you want to be happy, you buy their product. Another thing that they do use is flash sales. That's when they really drastically lower the price to something. But something isn't a good price to you if you don't need it and you haven't planned on buying it.
What we're trying to say, in short, is that you need to block out the noise.
There's one thing I hate. All the noise.
Yeah.
And how do you do that? You constantly evaluate your long-term goals up against your short-term temptations.
Exactly. Another thing that you should do is ignore the naysayers. There's probably some people in your friends group or maybe even in your own family that will tell you, you can't do this. That's impossible. Nobody can do that. What they're really saying is, I can't do that. So they don't want you to do it because they don't want to look bad.
I can't tell you how many times we were told, you can't live like that. And I thought, I don't know. We've been living like this a long time.
Yeah.
What they were really saying, Larry's actually correct, is I could never live like that. Well, that's
Right.
okay because they didn't have to live like that. We were living like that. But here's what you need to remember about frugality. Frugality is a tool to get you from point A to point B. Frugality is constantly evaluating what you're spending up against what you want and what is most important to you. It's never deprivation, ever, because you don't have to give anything up. What you have to do is figure out whether what you want is so important to you that you're going to work hard to get where you want to go.
You want to know your own value and the value of other things. You don't want to purchase items just to build up your own value. That isn't the reason to have things. You have things because they're convenient or you need them or it might benefit you in some way or another, but it isn't going to make you feel better.
Let me give you kind of a really quick quiz here. Have you ever based your own self-worth on, I've got a couple of notes here, what you own, where you live, the job you have, or how much money you make?
You know, in America, those four things are very important to most people because we've been taught that those things are important. When in reality, I've noticed this at my own high school class reunions. Who we were and what we make money for and how much we have didn't matter. It was who it was you were talking to that was important. The person themselves, not necessarily what they own or what they have.
I told Larry, I said, that's the difference between your 10th high school reunion and your 40th high
Yes.
school reunion. Look, at your 40th high school reunion, people are talking about, yeah, I'm retired, or yeah, I'm looking forward to retirement in another 5 years or so. And I got my kids, I got my grandkids. Let me show you like 50 pictures of my grandson. They're not talking necessarily about what they did or how much money they make, but oh boy, at my 10th reunion, it was all about getting my master's.
Oh, it was.
Getting my
It was.
PhD, working on Wall Street, and I was like, you know what? But are you happy? Are you doing something that energizes you every single day? To me, that was always what was more important.
Yeah, that's good. And when you get to your 50th class reunion, it's, my gosh, we're all still alive. It's amazing. Everything changes.
All right, so how do you combat this? You surround yourself with like-minded friends. Now, all of your friends don't have to be frugal, but nothing beats me saving a few dollars on something and texting my friend Julie and saying, you're not going to believe what I just did. Because I know that she's going to text right back and say, holy cow, that is so cool. Let me tell you what I did this week. It's like we fuel each other.
Yeah.
And I think once you get, it's like a symbiotic relationship, right? You learn about those in science class, where two things or two entities are together and they are equally supplying something to the relationship. That is what it's like to have a group of like-minded frugal friends.
Number 6 point is study the numbers. You know, numbers and statistics can give you a reference point of where you're at in the system.
If you've watched this channel for any length of time, you know that I am a serious numbers geek. I love numbers because they keep me motivated. Let me give you a sample of what I'm talking about. I happen to know, because I just researched it, that credit card debt in the United States in 2023 rose to $1.1 trillion. I also know that 50% of the people who own and use a credit card regularly do not pay it off in full on a regular basis. And finally, 78% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. Now, those are scary statistics and numbers that are going to make you feel like, oh my gosh, those are horrible statistics. But let me give you an idea of how that works in reverse.
Yes.
There are numbers and ways that you can use numbers that are going to seriously give you like a jetpack
Motivation.
to get you moving and staying on the path to frugality and the path to reaching your financial goals. Let me give you an example. You start thinking about cutting numbers. When you start cutting back expenses and see your savings grow, let me tell you something, that is serious motivation. Here are some statistics. Just recently in 2024 sometime, about mid-2024, the price of the average cable bill rose to $100. Now, I know from experience that's a pretty low cable bill, because I know people in my family that pay well over $100 for cable.
Oh, you're way over
But if
that,
the average is $100 a month for cable bill and you cut that cable cord, you've just saved over $1,000 a year. Now, that will get you jump started. Let's talk about some more. Common expense, dining out. Average family of 4 in the United States of America spends about $500 a month going out to eat. You know what that means? Let's just say you're going to cut it back to half of that. You're still going to go out to eat some, but you're going to cut half of those out. That's $250 a month, which means you have just saved $3,000 a year. Are you excited? Let's keep moving forward. How many of you have more than one streaming service? Right now I do, but you know the reason I do is because one of them I have free on trial for 6 months, and we're deciding whether we're going to save it or not.
And the other one I've gotten to like.
Netflix. Guys, I got him hooked on some of these programs on Netflix. So now I'm like, okay, I'm ready to, get rid of Netflix and get something else. He's like, no, I think we need to think about this.
I'm finding some really good movies to watch off of there. We've enjoyed several this weekend.
All right. So you will notice that we are not completely against spending any money. No. We have one service at a time though, and we rotate through them. You can watch all the programs you want for 2-3 months and then rotate to the next service. But if you have 3 or 4 of them, we would challenge you, cut back. That can save you anywhere from $25 to even $100 a month, depending on what you're paying for those services.
And since we mentioned Netflix, I will say we have the cheaper form of Netflix that comes with some ads within the programs. But the ads are really short. They're like 15 seconds and they're done. I'm like, well, this isn't bad. But there are ways to get some of the things that you're used to having on streaming services cheaper.
All right, so when you cut back on those extra services you don't need, you're talking somewhere between $240 and $600 a year. One more example, guys, before we move on. Coffee. Now, coffee is the elixir of life. We're not going to lie.
We like our coffee.
But listen, we make it at home. Starbucks have it.
Yeah.
$5 a day, 5 days a week. You are talking a habit that is costing you over $1,000 a year. We did a video on this too. We talked about 4 or 5 habits that they save you far more money than you would ever imagine when you cut back on those habits. We'll make sure that video is also listed in the description of this video. All right, there are numbers. Go forth, run your own numbers, and it will get you excited about frugality and how you can use it to help save money.
Now, when you're dealing with other people that say they want you to do something with them that's going to cost money, maybe go to a concert or go out and have some dessert or something for extra, you need to practice how you're going to respond to them.
Yeah, we love this idea because we did a lot of practicing. After we became debt-free, we're like, if we're going to do this, we have to learn to say no graciously.
Yes.
So one of the things that he practiced a lot at home and then used at work, around Christmas time, there were a lot of donation hats.
Opportunities to give.
Being passed around.
Yes.
And he would say, and this was the truth,
it was,
that we allocate a certain amount of discretionary money at the first of every year in order to fund charitable donations. And all of that money, I'm sorry, has already been allocated for the year.
Yep.
That made it gracious. They understood that we had a top amount that we were going to donate. We had already donated. So it made them feel like, and rightfully so, that we really had donated money, okay?
You're right.
That we had already given what we were going to give, but we were still helping to support others and we were helping support noteworthy causes.
But there might be some other responses you could think about in advance too. It's the same thing is true if they want you to go out to eat and you really can't afford it. You could just say, that's not a part of my budget this week. Hope you guys enjoy it. Maybe next month I can budget and go out with you.
Now, there's one thing that we need to say before we move on, and listen to me carefully because this is so pivotal in understanding this. You are only responsible for giving a gracious response.
Yes.
You are not responsible for how they receive or react to your response.
That's right.
Don't take that on yourself.
No, don't feel like you have to defend yourself. Just put it out there and leave it there.
This next tip is our all-time favorite. And we use this tip not just every week, but we probably use it every single day.
Yeah.
And it sums up everything that we're trying to say in this video. Learn to prioritize. Everything in your life should be prioritized. That means the items that are so important to you, that are most important to you, go at the top of that list.
Yep.
And the items that are a little less important go toward the bottom of the list. Anytime you make a list, anytime you make goals, anytime you decide to save money, anytime you decide to cut back your budget, anything you do related to money should be prioritized. And here's the reason why. Money is not amoral. Money, the way we spend, the way we save, the way we earn money, is all tied up in our worldview and what is most important to us. When you prioritize the things that you value, should always be the things that you prioritize at the top of that list. When you spend in line with your values, you're not going to regret it down the line.
One statement I think that sums up a lot of these principles is simply spend less than you make. If you spend less money than the amount of money that's coming in, you'll have plenty of money for saving and for spending some money on larger items later on.
That, of course, is known as a whole as living under your means. And we did a whole video on it that gave you all the principles that we use in order to live beneath our means. And we did it on a really low income.
We did.
That video is right over there. You should take a look at that video next.